What's up, gamers? Welcome to Battle Mallet Podcast, episode 73, Hexed, Embergard Part 2, Rivals Decks. For anyone that isn't familiar, the Battle Mallet Podcast is the journey of three busy gamers playing games that they love, balancing life with their games, and making their way to the Nova Open Convention every year. My name is Jerod Johnson. Tonight, I am joined by Trace Al Capone Hyde.
Oh my gosh, new Stormcast.
And Jason Table Dude Murray.
Oh my goodness, new Skaven?
Nailed it. So tonight's episode is part 2 of our Embergard box review. So for starters, thanks Games Workshop for sending us an advance copy for us to review so that we can create this content for everyone. In this episode, we're going to cover the Rivals decks, and we are going to, for the time being, continue the same fashion that we've been doing for Rivals decks. So we'll get into the details of which objectives we think are the best or that you want to see early, and the same for the power cards and the upgrades. With some spicy changes due to the way that, some upgrades are free now, which makes them seem a lot more valuable than when they cost glory. But those surprises will come later. Before we get into all that, though, I think we do want to do our usual of chatting about what we've been up to lately or what we are currently up to regarding hobby and gaming. So, Trace, let me interrupt your both literal and figurative flow here and ask what you've been up to.
I am currently finishing up the Stormcast half of the Embergard set as we speak.
Nice.
So when you lovely listeners hear this, you will see some pretty pictures. Now, these have been a lot of fun to paint. Some notable things about both warbands. These are some of the better Stormcast sculpts that I think I've ever painted. I mean, they're all great, but I think these are just very dynamic and have a lot of character, and they don't feel vanilla. Like the first couple of Stormcast warbands we got, the early ones, they were definitely Sigmarine-ish, very, very vanilla. Not a lot of character to them, and as the Stormcast have evolved, they've found ways to incorporate more character into them, and so these have like all these cool cloaks on them and furs, and they just feel very Ranger, even more so than Farstrider did, and they're definitely like a second coming of Farstrider in a lot of ways. So they're a really cool warband. I'm excited for folks to get their hands on them. I've had a lot of fun painting them. And kind of pushing myself on them in particular because I've not done a whole lot of non-metallic metal on the podcast warbands, and so it's been fun to do that. And then as far as the Skaven go, there are bits and bobs everywhere on those models, and they're awesome. Yes. There are pouches and grenades and daggers and pipes and ooze and all kinds of fun stuff that you can paint. So my recommendation to anybody painting them is don't panic by the number of details that you're going to see on those minis. Just have fun. You can paint all the metallics the same color and it's going to look great. Like don't panic. In the words of Aaron Rodgers, RELAX, relax when you go to do those. I think that people are really going to enjoy them. There's lots of opportunities for you to play around and explore like different glow effects and stuff like that on both warbands. So, but yeah, I've really enjoyed those. And yeah,
nice. That's cool. Well, so for transparency's sake, we did get 2 boxes to paint, and so I have also been working on the Stormcast, so I painted them up in my usual Anvils of the Heldenhammer style. Try to spend a little bit more time on them than I have the past warbands. So anybody that's seen my Domatan or my Zandire, there was a lot of targeted dry brushing to get the highlights. And I actually did edge highlights on this one, and I think they turned out really well. And in lieu of the skull masks that I was prone to putting on the helmets of the Stormcast, I opted to make them look more undead. So dipping into that Anvils of the Helden Hammer lore where they are, the heroes of old and they come from Shyish. And so, maybe they've been reforged maybe 2 or 3 too many times. And so they are looking less and less alive as they go through. But they were a lot of fun to paint. I agree. I am also excited to play with them because I think they're going to be a lot of fun. And then, I have built the Skaven, have not painted them yet, but yes, bits and bobs and details everywhere. So hopefully,
I think your normal approach of a decent gray and then maybe like a Zenithal, like dry brush or whatever over top and contrast. Work great for you.
The hashtag slapchop method is probably the route I will take. So, I mean, that's
Jason,
really
what you been working on.
Well, Jason and I played a game.
You did?
Of Embergard.
Yeah, we did play that. So, I mean, I haven't worked on anything because, I'm just out here being me, playing games, reading cards, trying to get baseline for the Nemesis library. But I am excited to get the Stormcast because, I don't paint a lot and we haven't been playing 40K. So I am going to switch my Stormcast to anyone that has seen any of my Stormcast. They're kind of gray armor with purple cloaks and highlights. I am going full Dark Angels on these wonderful Stormcast.
I love it.
So I am excited to paint them and excited to kind of, have that bring in 2.0 with a different aesthetic, and very excited that the coolest Ranger looking model is a lady, because I always love that Emma can identify with a model. So
for us is awesome.
She's my favorite of the warband for sure.
Oh yeah, hands down.
Yeah. But I will say too, like when we played our practice game, one of the things that I thought would bother me the most would be the change of artwork. And when we played, like, these cards are nice. Like, it didn't bother me as much as I thought it was going to. So.
Yeah,
I like the way they feel. The texture on them is very nice. Now, once you get the card sleeves on them, it doesn't make any difference. But when you first open them up, they're really nice.
Yeah, and I think they did a really good job. Probably the best that they could do for them to be pictures of the miniatures. But they've commented on it. The Warcom article about from the Warhammer Design Studio was out, and one of the things that they said that they kind of lamented about the previous editions was the lack of consistency in the card art. And this gives them an opportunity to be consistent in the art that's on the cards, even if it is not art from, hand drawn artists. But it's still artists expressing their skill, just in a different medium. And they're a miniatures company at the end of the day. So the more they can feature their miniatures, the happier they'll be.
Have you noticed that there's like non-Underworlds miniatures in some of the art too?
I have. Yeah.
Like there's a lot of, like, the Gorgers are in there.
Yeah, the Gorgers from Warcry. Mange is surrounded by treasure chests in one, and there are no treasure chest miniatures in Warhammer Underworlds. So
it's just been a
they did a good job of setting scenes, and they've got some lighting effects and some particle effects and stuff. They've got them set up on terrain, like they're not just on Underworld's boards. So yeah,
I found that interesting about the article that they released for the Warhammer Plus article, where it showed like very cinematic shots of them. I just thought that was funny. I was like, that's not what this looks like anytime you play, but it's cool that you want to recreate that scene.
Yeah, the pictures look like something that you would see on a Warcry board, but
correct. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and so who knows? Maybe there'll be Warcry rules. Fingers crossed. Anyway, before we ramble too much longer, why don't we take a break? And when we come back, we will review Blazing Assault. And we're back, and we are here to talk about the Blazing Assault Rivals deck from the Embergard box. This is going to be our Rivals review. I said it at the top of the episode. I'll say it again. We're just going to run through the deck. We're not going to go card by card, but we're going to pick out the 3 cards that you probably want to see early or the 3 cards that we like the best. And then at the end, we'll kind of talk about the playstyle, but Games Workshop did our job for us there. And then some other tips and opinions about the deck itself. So without any further ado, let's run through the objectives. So after conversations and chatting and discussing things, we landed on, we want to see Branching Fate, Get Stuck In, and Keep Chopping early in our in our objective hand. So Branching Fate making its triumphant return, originally in Nightfall, and then resurfaced in the Essentials pack. But this is score immediately after you make an attack roll that contained 3 or more dice if each result was a different symbol. If you are the underdog, so introducing the new mechanic, and as a reminder, the underdog is whenever you have the lowest glory. So as long as you have the lowest glory, you are the underdog, even if that changes after you score a card. The attack roll can contain 2 or more dice instead. So you can roll 2 different symbols on 2 dice if you're the underdog and score this card. Seems really good.
It's very good.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you're the underdog, it's a nice catch-up.
It definitely feels more consistent than it did in the previous version because of the underdog mechanic.
Yep. But there will be games that you will never score it. I have played before and had it in hand like for 3 rounds, and all of my attacks just end up being like 2 successes and a miss. And it's like, well, the attack went through, but I'm not scoring my card. So,
yeah, but I think that's what's really cool with the underdog, right? So, like, if this starts to brick, you're probably falling behind, and now it becomes easier with just 2 dice.
Yep. And if it starts breaking real bad, there's always the focus.
I was getting ready to say, action. Like, you can always just ditch it.
Yeah. So I am curious though. So like Branching Fate, I agree. Probably one of the strongest cards that we see in this Rivals deck. But there's another one that's similar, and that's called Perfect Strike. And my mind was playing weirdness, right? So like when I first read this, I'm like, oh, I know this card. I remember it from long ago. So, but this one says, score this immediately after you make an attack roll if all the results were successes. You know what that doesn't mean? It doesn't mean that the attack have to be a success.
That's true.
So if you're rolling 2 dice and you get a crit hammer, like, and your opponent blocks it,
you still score.
Yeah,
well, you still score this too.
I know. But that's on 3 dice. This could be, this could be on 1 die.
That's true. Yeah, right. Like you debuff yourself on purpose. I don't know. It feels like there's a big brain move in there somewhere that you could do. I like that idea. Yeah. But I debuff myself so that I can score Perfect Strike whether the attack went through or not.
It's a brilliant plan. That sounds like something I would
I just bring it up because my mind is still digesting this whole like score immediately, very like attack roll.
Yeah.
Like, and that one in Perfect Strike, it was like normally those type of cards had to be a successful.
That's true.
Like a success, but it's just success it doesn't have to be successful.
That's right.
So cool stuff. Yeah. So Branching Fate.
Yep. So speaking of successful versus not successful, our next one, which I think is arguably easier to score than Branching Fate, but comes after it alphabetically, is Get Stuck In. And this is score this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack if the target was in enemy territory. Doesn't have to be a successful attack. Just have to roll some attack dice and the target be in enemy territory. That it doesn't get any easier than that. So I think there could be an argument made for Perfect Strike versus Branching Fate. I don't think there's an argument for Get Stuck In, especially early, because if you're playing against an invasive warband, another strike warband that also wants to come into your territory, you may not get any opportunities in late round 2, round 3 to attack an enemy in enemy territory.
Yeah, and this one we might not even have to charge. You just shoot across the line.
That's right. That's right. If you're Uruk with your range 4 bolt storm crossbow or whatever he's got, strike,
burn
crossbow.
your war scroll, and it's range 5.
Range 5. That's right.
Man,
done.
bam, done. I'm done.
Easy peasy. So with all of these attacks, you might as well include a good end phase.
Yeah.
So we think you probably want to keep chopping. Score this in an end phase if your warband attacked 3 or more times this combat phase. So easier than the old keep chopping, which was 4 or more.
So would scything work?
What is scything?
Oh, is that not there anymore? What is it
No,
called?
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
It's yeah. So if it's there, it's not now.
Huh.
It is not one of the attack abilities.
It's really, yeah, you're right. It's not in that list of stuff. Oh man.
Nope.
So it's just 3 attacks. Okay.
You got Grievous, Cleave, Ensnare, Brutal. I'm sure I'm missing one. It's fine. It's all new.
It's all new.
It's all new.
I like that one too. Like, it doesn't have to be a charge again. It can be any type of attacks. It's just attack 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes for what they say this deck is. It's a strike deck. It's all about attacking. So roll those attack dice. All right. So how can we make our lives easier here? Well, let's pick out some good gambits. So the first one, Determined Effort. We've seen it. It's a surge ability. Play this immediately after you pick a weapon as a part of an attack. That weapon has +1 attack dice for that attack action. If you are the underdog, that weapon has +2 attack dice for that attack instead. This will not help you score Branching Fate or Perfect Strike. Just FYI.
Just adding dice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Nothing like trying to roll 5 different symbols on 5 dice.
So immediately after you pick a weapon.
Yep.
As part of an attack.
Yep. So it's not, you don't have to play it before, right?
Yeah.
So if we're trying to think about the way that old things were played, you would play a power card and, and then the next attack action, blah, 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 and the next activation, blah. Nope, we're not using those words anymore.
Nope.
So this is just when you pick a weapon.
Yep.
Play it.
Play this card. Yep.
So kind of like right before you pick the weapon's ability.
Yeah, sure. Yep. Yep, before you.
And no range limit on this bad boy either, huh?
Nope. Yeah,
that's
it
pretty
is
cool.
Not restricted to melee or ranged.
It seems pretty good.
More importantly, into the cards that we selected, like I really like the underdog mechanic. Like,
yeah,
give me back in the game.
Right. Like, let's not let every game be a blowout. I mean, some are going to be, right? Like, dice are going to dice, or you're going to read the room wrong, or make an assumption about your opponent's deck or their play style or whatever. But the more often that you can get the chance to get back in the game, the more engaging the game as a whole is.
Yeah, but to me, it's also like, just take the 2 warbands that are in the box, right? Like, you might get more value out of this because you might lose a rat, right? And lose a glory, or whatever it's called, bounty.
Yeah, well, it's still glory, but it's a bounty characteristic.
So it just, to me, it makes this card more impactful, especially when it comes to deck building too. Like, I might turn 1 be playing from behind because I am playing a horde warband. But at the same time, it still has +1 attack dice, so it's still valuable to your elite that maybe don't.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's somewhere where some of the nuance is going to come with the skilled players is, do I save this for later so I get more value out of it? Like, if something goes amok, like, do I just leverage the single die? There's more choice in there because of that underdog part of the card.
Yeah.
But I still like it. Determined Effort. Next one. The next one is like the greatest card of all time.
It's a shocker.
I know, right?
Everyone's going to be shocked. Anybody that's listened to our review, they're going to be shocked that we picked a push card. And this is sidestep. Pick a friendly fighter, push that fighter 1 hex. And we aren't the first ones to call this out. I think they called this out on the live stream that they did like 2 weeks ago or whenever it was with Nick and Josh playing. The sidestep card has Doom and Claw on it.
Yeah.
Which is just so fitting because how do crabs walk? Sideways.
To the side?
To the side. They step to the side.
That's all great. Oh, great. Awesome pun. Sidestep, they're stepping to the side. Haha. No, let's just call it as it is. Sidestep was the most defining card in version 1 to ever be.
Yeah.
And Doomclaw is the most defining model. He is model of the year. It is only fitting that he got onto this card.
Agreed.
Doomclaw, you are amazing. I love you.
Yep. So, easy enough. Great card for positioning. Either deny your opponent something, give yourself something, set yourselves up so that you don't have to use your War Scroll ability to add 1 range to your ranged attack so that you can attack an enemy and target a fighter in enemy territory. Easy peasy. What are we going to do if somebody deployed really far back, though, Jason? How do you get there?
Can you deploy far back anymore with the new boards?
There's some stuff on the edge hexes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just play Wings of War, so.
Yep. So you would play this immediately after you pick a fighter to move. So it's a surge ability. You don't have to play it. You're not giving anything away in the power step. So reactive to when you pick a fighter to move. That fighter has +2 move for that move. So just now, Inspired Attack can move 7.
That's pretty good, especially with the new board layout.
Literally the whole board.
The whole board.
Yeah.
That's the whole board.
Even if they went 5s?
Yeah. Even if they go 5, there's probably like 5 spaces that he couldn't get to from any given starting hex.
I mean, Battle and Blood, wait for no warrior.
That is true. And the card's got one of your bays on there.
Oh my god, it's Jegathra.
Embergard, it's Jerod and Embergard.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved additional movement. And I really like that it's an instant, right? It's a surge that you're not telegraphing it. So
yeah, that's cool. All right, so on to the upgrades. So 2 of these are all about getting the attacks through. So like we have chosen cards that don't require successful attack actions, but it's still a strike deck. You're going to want to get some glory from taking the enemy fighters out of action. So Hidden Aid. Enemy fighters adjacent to this fighter are flanked. So that's going to help both on offense and defense. So like if somebody comes up and is adjacent to you when they're attacking you, then they count as flanked. So you'll get to count flanked results as successes on your defense roll.
That's the half circle, right?
That is the half circle, correct.
Okay. Cool.
It is the circle where the dot is flanked, not the facing where the dot is surrounded.
Like formerly known as single support.
As singles and yes, yeah. This is the die face formerly known as single supports. Yeah, and so the other one is Keen Eye. This fighter's melee weapons have +1 attack dice. So this could help you score Branching Fate if you're looking at fighters that have a lot of attack characteristics on 2 dice. But it also just lets you land more attacks. And then last but not least, we would be remiss if we did not include a Great Fortitude. So Great Fortitude, this fighter has +1 health. It is worth noting that Hidden Aid costs 1 glory, but both Keen Eye and Great Fortitude cost 2. Yep. So these will be ones that you'll be putting on after you score, get stuck in, and Branching Fate, if that's the route that you go.
What a great balancing mechanic. I mean, who doesn't love Great Fortitude? It's
I mean,
it's
yeah,
awesome.
But now that it costs 2 bounty, like, do we include it every time? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, because large is no longer large, right? It's just the bounty that's on the fighter. So
right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, taking a Stormcast from 5 health to 6 health feels, I mean, we don't have a lot of data, but that feels pretty
pretty
important.
good.
Or a 4 wound fighter to 5, I think, is probably the bigger play.
Yeah. I mean, heck, if you have 4 glory, you put tough and great fortitude on, and then you're really good.
You want to read us tough?
Tough. No more than 3 damage can be inflicted on this fighter in the same turn.
Okay. So, in turn includes the power step. So, like, if there's a ping card out there, then you could get smacked for 3 and then be unpingable.
Maybe I have to read the book, right? I think it is. I think you are correct.
I think
it's your turn, my turn.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
I think so. A lot of nuance. I love it.
I like it. All right. Play style. Well, this has been spoiled. I don't know. We're going to have to change this section, I think. This is a strike deck.
Right. So I don't think so much play style, but I think, and for not for this episode, because we're still learning the 4 decks that are within this starter set. But I think going forward, like, we'll just kind of give you best nemesis pairing, like what we think, what deck would go well with this, and hopefully then our listeners can take like our top 3 cards, our top 3 objectives, top 3 gambits, and top 3 upgrades, and then you can pair it with what we think is the best nemesis rivals deck pairing. Take those 3, and you're pretty much halfway to building a solid deck, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we will have to change this part of it up just because they are classified as strike and take and hold, and not a lot of information we can give away there. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, like there's nothing novel that we can say there. I think the other opportunity that we could have is maybe giving some like best practices. Like, do you always deploy far forward? Do you like always attack or not, or whatever the case is. So I think we can talk about boards. I was sad, unless they're in there and I haven't seen it. I don't think that the boards have names. We covered this. We talked about this before. I went back through the rule book. So I think we're going to call it dials and seal. So there's the one side that's got like the dials on it.
Yeah, look, they kind of have like block hexes, kind of have sundial looking things, sort of.
Yeah, yep. And then there's the board side that does not have blocked hexes that has the giant seal on the floor. So for this one, if you're going to be aggressive, I think you want dials. I think you want the sundial board, and I think you want to set it up 9s.
Yeah.
Because it gives you the opportunity to put the most number of fighters forward. You do have to navigate around the blocked hexes, but we'll get into this when we review the other decks. The blocked hexes don't bother a strike as much. In fact, they may help it play against a take and hold because there are fewer available hexes to place future tokens. So,
yeah, I think the biggest shutout there is like putting it 9s on that one gets you closer to the line, and you want to go.
You do want to go. I like it. Cool. New player rating.
I mean, this is just the gold.
It is a gold. I think the only caveat there is annihilation. So, but you have to include it, right? Like it is likely ever only going to be a win more. But I think everything else is pretty consistently scoreable. That having a card in there that's inconsistent, I think is fine. I mean, would I have rather seen, 3 2 glory in phases instead of 1 5 glory in phase? Maybe. But I don't know. Because, again, we don't have a lot of games with it. So.
Yeah, I think that there's some really good staples in here that really make you a solid strike. And I kind of like that Annihilation is 5 because it's not always guaranteed. And I do think that with how many tools are in this deck to take other fighters off the board, it's kind of a good balancing. Like, yes, it will be a win more, but if there were stronger 2s and 3s, given the fact that some of our surges we don't even need to have successful attacks on, it could snowball pretty bad.
I feel like it would feel worse if you could also consistently score 2 and 3 glory in phases. So cool. Well, that's it for Blazing Assault. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we will talk about the Emberstone Sentinels.
And we're back and ready for Rivals Deck Part 2. Emberstone Sentinels. This is a take and hold deck. Real excited about this one because, this is where we see them reintroduce hold objective 1.
Or 2.
And I'm sorry, not objective. Treasure token 1.
That's right.
And 2. And that will not make our top 3 choice for objectives, but it is pretty cool that instead of just holding a single, like number 1, number 2, or number 3, that you have the choice between token 3 or 4 or 1 or 2. I'm sorry, token 5, you still are terrible.
Yes.
But they do play into with the way that treasure tokens are placed onto the boards. I think that they you will score some of these. So, but our top objective pick for the Emberstone Sentinel is Aggressive Defender, followed by Iron Grasp, and my favorite card from way back in the day, Supremacy.
Triumphant Return.
Yes, super happy to see it back. But for this take and hold deck, the first one being Aggressive Defender. This is a surge. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack if the attacker is holding a treasure token. It's already yours by right. They just haven't realized it yet.
Gotta love good flavor text.
This is like great for a ranged warband, right? Like you just charge onto a treasure token, make your attack, and wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. I got a glory.
That's right. And so in the 2 warbands in the starter deck, I mean, obviously all of the Emberwatch have ranged attacks, but there are 2 fighters that have attacks at more than range 1 in Zicket's Tunnel Pack.
Yeah.
So Zicket has a range 2, and then I don't remember his name.
Rat dude,
Molotov Cocktail. 3. Rat. Molotov Rat Tail.
Rat Tail?
Yeah, he's throwing bombs from far away. So either warband you pick out of this box is going to be able to do something with this.
Yeah. I think it's a great way to start your hand.
Yeah. And again, doesn't require a successful attack action.
Nope. Just make one from that treasure token. I mean, moving on and jumping to just like, I want my cake and eat it too, is Supremacy. So this is, it's a little different. Still worth 3 glory, which is fantastic. But score this in an end phase if 2 or more friendly fighters with a total bounty characteristic of 3 or more hold treasure tokens. I mean,
that seems better than before.
It does seem better than before.
It is. It is better than running the double Supremacy in a Farstrider list.
Is it?
In Nightvault, yes. So
I really like the way that this card is written. So you have to have 2, right? Like,
yep.
And then the bounty characteristic of 3 or more really helps your elite warband. So like you have 2 fighters that probably have a bounty characteristic of 3 or more, and you just hold the 2 in your territory, kind of you can score. But then if you are playing like the rats where they're 1 apiece, you probably are having to hold 3. So,
or
I
mean, Zicket and Ritak.
Could just
Or Zicket and Tick Tick. Because Zicket's worth 3 bounty.
oh.
Ticket's bounty characteristic is 3.
And Tick Tick is not like
Is 0.
He can hold a treasure token.
I mean, why couldn't he?
I don't know. Just clarifying because these old rules are in my head.
Yeah, you got to get them out, man.
Get them out. Throw them away.
Throw them away. You purge them, man. Get them out of there. I think it is. I do like that you have more choice in who gets to hold treasure tokens than you used to. Apparently, I think if Zicket's Tunnel Pack had been released in the previous version, he would have had the Beast keyword, which made him ineligible to hold treasure tokens.
Yeah.
Also, I guess he could take attack action upgrades.
Maybe.
I mean, sure. I think he can. It's not a question. Is that the best use of Tick Tick?
Is to blow him up.
I don't think so. Yeah. That's the best use of Tick Tick. He's worth no bounty anyway. So, and you can't throw a weapon on him and charge and do crazy damage and then blow him up. Anyway.
Yeah, and I also just want to call it too, like, so with the board change, and I know I keep going back to this board change, but I really, really like it because then cards like this are fine. Like, you're not, even though if those treasure tokens get placed deeper in one person's territory, they're still accessible for attacks and to drive off. And there's like this counterplay where if the boards had stayed the same with offset or longboard, like this card would be like awesome. Everyone would be running it and it would be very like passive.
Yeah, because it would turn into a hold 2 for 3.
Yes.
Is what this would turn into.
And it's still like, we could be wrong, but I think that there's just going to be more interaction. And I love that this card is there for us to play with. And then the last objective is Iron Grasp. Score this in an end phase if your warband holds all of the treasure tokens in friendly territory and or enemy territory. All of them.
Do you know what you can do in this game, Jason?
I don't know. What can you do?
You can delve, sir.
Oh, okay, cool.
So if you only have 1 treasure token, because as soon as you delve it, it's no longer a treasure token. This could be hold 1 for 2 glory.
Could be, yeah.
You're probably not going to do that because, you want to score supremacy. But I'm already thinking ahead to like Nemesis pairings.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A nice little 2 glory in phase for being on a single treasure token. Could be fun.
Could be.
Could be broken.
Could
I've
be.
just let the cat out of the bag.
Well, I do. I mean, I like those 3 objectives. I kind of like pairing those with some of the other stuff we saw in Blazing Assault. And
I know I'm already. Yeah, you and I are already getting ready, moving into that flex. Like I could hold some, and I could still attack, and if I attack from the treasure token that's in neutral territory and target a fighter in enemy territory, I've just scored 2 surges.
Seems cool to me. But you know what? Why don't we just like settle in on some gambits first before we get there? And that'll be our first one. So settle in. Pick a friendly fighter on a feature token. Give that fighter a guard token. And you want to know something fun that happened in our little test game here?
What is something fun that happened?
I used sidestep, got onto a treasure token, delved it so you couldn't have it. And then I was like, you want to know what? I'm going to play Settled In and give him a guard token and take away my stagger token. Oh, wait, nope, that doesn't happen anymore.
It does not. Nope.
But guard, for Settled In, like, it definitely is really good to get a guard token in this version. Just because creating those additional successes on your defense dice can really pull through. So,
and then not being able to be driven back in the event that the attack does go through means that you're going to hold the objectives.
What else you
hold
got?
The treasure tokens. My bad.
The treasure tokens. There you go. What else?
So, speaking of holding the treasure tokens, we could hold the line. So this is a gambit. Fighters cannot be driven back. This effect persists until the end of the next action step. So it doesn't, it's not a domain a la Rhymocked Relics.
No, but
at some point we'll stop referencing the old game.
I know, but I think
it's be a minute,
yeah.
Us, it can be for context.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is cool that it does persist, right? And it's through the next person's action step. So I'm still going to be where I want to be.
Well, yeah, and you play this into your opponent's last act, before your opponent's last action step, while you're on your 2 to 3 objectives. While you have fighters whose bounty characteristic adds to 3 or more holding objective, 2 or more objectives.
Yeah.
2 or more treasure tokens. Gosh, that's going to be the hardest one for me.
If you just play it by the numbers, Jerod, it'll be okay. And that's our last gambit. And I really like to see this one. So by the numbers, draw a number of power cards equal to the number of treasure tokens held by your warband. So we've already talked about how you're probably going to cycle cards a lot quicker, given the fact that you can focus. But this is a great way to get cards with sidestep in this deck as well. You really can leverage this quickly to trade 1 for 2. Because remember, you have this in your hand. So if you're only holding 1 treasure token, you're just trading a card for another card. But if you can use a combination to have those 2 minimum, you are getting an additional power card, which is always encouraged.
I agree.
And then, so that moves us into the upgrades. And, we're going to start with great speed, but I want you to take this one because this one is pretty cool. It's the first one we've talked about.
So we talked about this before on the previous episode, and I was wrong.
You were wrong?
And it did not feel good to be wrong.
Oh.
But I've come around. So great speed, this fighter has +1 move. Not a card that you saw a lot. Like, not an upgrade. Is it worth a glory to put a card on to give somebody +1 move when you could take a gambit that doesn't cost anything, like a sidestep or Wings of War, whatever it was called before Spectral Wings.
Mm-hmm.
But this upgrade doesn't cost any bounty to apply to a fighter.
What?
It costs any glory. Yep. Its glory cost is 0. So it's like an illusion upgrade, but it doesn't go away when you are damaged or it's the end of the round.
Or selected by a ploy.
Or selected by a ploy. So you could just give your slowest fighter +1 move.
Yep.
Really helps you get to those treasure tokens.
It does help you get to the treasure tokens.
Yeah, it's an instant buff to a fighter card, right? To their stat block that probably could really use +1. So,
yeah.
Or it gives you an opportunity to get all the way across the battlefield with a fighter without a whole lot of issue.
Yeah. Or if you're like on the line, you can get to a treasure token that your opponent thought was safe.
Yep. For free.
Okay, the next one is Sharp Reflexes. This is a 2 glory cost upgrade, so we went from 0 to 2. But this fighter has +1 save to a maximum of 2, and just from our couple of test games, this is going to be pretty big to kind of swing the dice in your favor. The +1 dice is fantastic. It is a steep cost, but I think it's really worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the fact that a crit is just a normal success on the attack means that if somebody comes in and they roll a crit and a miss, your chances of blocking that on 1 dodge are 1 in 3. and they come closer to 50-50 as soon as you get 2 dice. So, that's a pretty big jump. And then if you're on 1 shield and you add this, it gets a lot better. I think you'll block a single success like 75% of the time if you're on 2 block.
Yeah. And it's real nice that you can't make that characteristic go, to 3 or 4. So I do like that. It is, again, a steep cost, but I'm taking it.
Yep.
The last upgrade that we think are ones that you would like to see early on is Brute Momentum.
Yep. So this fighter cannot be driven back while they have a charge token. While they have any charge tokens.
Any charge token. Nice.
Yeah.
This.
So it's got a picture of a brute on it, and a truly bullish will can overcome the most ferocious of assaults.
This allows you to be aggressive, probably claiming treasure tokens in enemy territory without easy access to being pushed off that treasure token. So it is something that you're going to want to see early. It allows you to be aggressive. And so far, Jerod, I'm seeing a lot of pairings like with Blazing in this. It's, I think
there's a lot to like there.
Yeah, I just think that there's a lot of tools for us to really get into the next version with the deck building and Nemesis, and then pair this with War Scrolls that we'll like to see. I'm excited for it. So, new player rating?
Yeah, so I think it's a silver plus. I think it's pretty straightforward in what it wants you to do. But historically, hold objective has been a more difficult playstyle to play well, to be successful with early. So the deck itself is straightforward. Get on treasure tokens, stay on treasure tokens. Done. But using your 12 activations to do that well, I think is more difficult than I want to give this a pure gold.
Yeah. I'm fine with that as well. If new player rating aggro/strike is the easiest for new players to go.
Yes.
Take and hold would be the next step. And then the step after that, maybe the next deck that we have to go through.
Maybe, but before we get to the next one, and it'll come up with the next one anyway, when you're thinking about your boards, if you win the roll-off, we think you probably want to pick Seal. Because there are no block hexes, so it gives you more flexibility to place the feature tokens. So
you probably want to go 5 so you can get them deeper in your territory.
Yes. It just depends on which way you orient the board, but yeah.
Yeah, because remember, if you're picking the board, your opponent is placing the first objective in no one's territory.
In neutral territory. So you get to place the first one in your territory. Yes. So you'll get one where you want, and then if you're playing against a savvy opponent, they're going to put the other one as far forward. The other one in your territory probably as far forward as they can.
Yes.
And then you get to place the last, kind of where you want in their territory. Or maybe even in your own territory if they mess it up, like I often do. But that may be the way to go, so that it's harder for them to hold all feature tokens in their territory for 2 glory. Or treasure tokens. Anyway, so.
Treasure tokens.
It's going to be so bad.
All right. Just think Overlord. The old video game Overlord.
Oh, fair.
Treasures. That's all you got to think.
That's it. Cemented now.
Probably one of the best updates to the rules because it stops your objective hand and the objectives on the board confusion, and you can't grasp it. It's awesome.
I love it.
All right.
So good.
We will take a quick break and be back with the next deck.
And we're back, and we are ready to pillage and plunder the next Rivals deck, which is also called Pillage and Plunder. So we'll just run through the objectives that you want to see early. So we're going to start with Claim the Prize. This is score this immediately after a friendly fighter delves into enemy territory, which seems pretty difficult. If you're the underdog, that delve can be in friendly territory instead. So
that does not seem difficult.
That does not seem difficult at all. And as we talked about in the previous review, if you're really canny about placing your feature tokens, you may be able to put one easily within range of enemy territory anyway, so you aren't relying on the underdog. But one glory for flipping a card or flipping a feature token seems pretty good.
Yeah, the only downside here would be like if you get this early, you might be going across and delving and being staggered for a round. Really, you're going to want some knowledge on the way that your opponent is playing. Are they going to cover that treasure token, as in move on to it or delve it themselves? Just a little knowing when to pull the trigger here is really important. But again, I love the underdog mechanic, and I think that that's why we want this. Is if you do fall behind, this is so easy. So
yeah, and it could be late game at that point, right?
Could be.
Maybe it's not early in the round that you score it. So the next one that we like, again, this is probably not. It's not as easy as just attacking a fighter in enemy territory. But share the load. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter moves if that fighter and any other friendly fighters are each on feature tokens. So we did not pick Sidestep for this deck, but it is in there. But there's a lot of... This is a flex. So aggro, so you're going to be moving, charging, doing some attacking anyway. So your first few activations may be charging onto feature tokens or things like that. So you also want to see it early because as you start to lose fighters, having two fighters on feature tokens gets more difficult.
Yeah, the nice thing about Share the Load is it specifically says feature tokens, so it does not have to be treasure. Like if it was already delved or for whatever reason it's not treasure side up, still score this one.
Yep. Lots of flexibility there. And then the last one we want to see is Against the Odds. Score this in an end phase if an odd numbered treasure token was dealt by your warband this battle round. This is probably going to be easiest early only because if your opponent is also playing hold, then they may be on the feature tokens or have delved them. And there are 3 odd numbered treasure tokens. So there's a good shot that one of them will be in your territory or in...
No Man's.
Yeah. I was going to say, I guess you're guaranteed to have one in No Man's, but that's not necessarily true.
Well, you're guaranteed, but we
don't have to get into the math of it, but it is extremely likely that there will be an odd numbered feature token in neutral territory.
Neutral or your territory.
Or yours, yes. Neutral or yours, yes. Yep. So that's it for objectives. We can move into the gambits. Again, Sidestep is in here. It may be one that you want to see before you see these, but we've already talked about it, so we wanted to call these out. So the first one is Explosive Charges. This is the first domain that we've talked about. Friendly fighters have +1 move while using charge abilities. This effect persists until the end of the battle round or until another domain card is played. So, like we said at the top, this is a flex, strike, plus take and hold deck. So there is some attacking involved. So charging onto feature tokens is going to be easier when you can move faster.
Yeah, and other than just this card, it's cool that it's a domain. It's really cool that it lasts +1 move for all charge abilities in that round for your friendly fighters. But this is now the third kind of plus move that we've picked out of the 3 decks. And I just want to call out like how easy it is to get around the boards. Like there's going to be a lot of engagement in this box with these decks. Like it is evident that the passive sit and hold an objective in the back of the board is you're going to have a plan to get attacked, because with the amount of pushes and movement that are in these decks and that are accessible, you're going to get hit, or at least attempted to get hit. So
yeah, and I'm okay with that. But I've always liked aggro. So,
and also with the focus, right? Like you can get to those cards a lot easier too.
That's
so
true.
like if you're playing against somebody who is playing more passive, you're like, okay, I have to get across the board. You can just like try and get to those cards way faster.
Yeah, I mean, you
could previously
get your whole power hand if you need to.
Yep,
to draw
really,
6
really
new
need to.
cards.
Yep.
Yeah, and I also think it adds value to the guard token. It adds value to all the cards that we reviewed in the Emberstone Sentinels deck that don't allow you to be driven back. It just, these changes grow the game, like grow the card pool even more. So next,
I like it. So Wary Delver, pick a friendly fighter with any charge tokens. Give that fighter a guard token.
Oh, a guard token.
Nice. Speaking of guard tokens, this is really good. You know, you're charging on a feature tokens. With this deck, you want to be delving or flipping. So you may now be counting 5 of the 6 die faces on the save dice as successes.
Yeah, and it also combats getting that reroll against you if you did delve, right?
Right.
So it's really powerful.
That's pretty good. And then the last gambit that we want to see early, much to Brian from What the Hex's chagrin, is Trapped Cash. Pick an undamaged enemy fighter within 1 hex of a treasure token, inflict 1 damage on that fighter. So it doesn't feel like unsavable damage is going to be that common. I mean, you know, they did just announce the new decks. So it looks like one of them might have more ping damage, so damage happening in the power step. But you want to see this one early because, I mean, free damage is great, but it has to be an undamaged enemy fighter, and they have to be within 1 hex of a treasure token. And if they are not playing a flex with a hold or just a pure hold, them being adjacent to feature tokens is going to get less likely as the game goes on.
It's the undamaged fighter is really cool.
Yes.
Because you're not saving it to finish somebody off. You're playing it to start
softening them up.
Yep. Yeah. And then for the upgrades, so we picked another 0 cost one, Canny Sapper, and I really like this one. So this is a surge ability, sneaky, immediately after you play a ploy in a power step. In a power step, could be your power step, your opponent's. You can remove this fighter from the battlefield. Place this fighter in an empty stacker hex or in an empty starting hex in friendly territory, and then discard this card. So, yes, they'll take the stagger token, but it says place them in an empty stagger hex. It's not restricted to your territory. So you could drop a fighter into enemy territory. It doesn't cost anything to put the upgrade on. Ploys don't cost anything to play. So you've gotten, you know, some potential really high movement for free. So seems pretty good.
Yeah, it also can be kind of like a 2-step illusionary fighter, right? To bring them back into your territory.
That's true. Go in, attack, come back.
Yep.
No, you're all sorts of staggered. Cool. All right. So the next 2 upgrades that we want to see are Swift Step. This says a Swift Step has the surge ability quick. Immediately after this fighter has charged, you can push this fighter 1 hex. So the vision here is you can go in and charge a fighter and then push back onto a feature token or treasure token to delve it as needed or to get in neutral territory if that's what you need. It's a little bit more flexible than just a pure +1 move. because you get to dictate where you go after you charge instead of where the charge ends itself. And then there's Impossibly Quick, which Jason hated on an inspired Ardorn. This fighter has +1 save. Immediately discard this upgrade after an enemy fighter's failed attack if this fighter was the target. So you do lose it as soon as it causes somebody to miss or your opponent whiffs their roll. But it can be a pretty big deterrent because an inspired Ardorn is sitting on 3 block, and that is a lot of opportunities for successful saves.
Yeah. If it doesn't work, you get to keep it. And the difference here is you can go to 3 dice or 4 dice or 17 dice, whatever.
17 dice. 17 feels unlikely, but could happen. Who knows? It's a lot of design space here. And then again, so we talked about this for Emberstone Sentinels. When you're picking your board, you probably want to pick Seal. I don't know that you necessarily want to go 9s because there's more attack here, so you may not want to bury all of your feature tokens. But the seal side of the board gives you more opportunities to place those feature tokens overall. So,
yeah, and the other thing just about this deck too, there are, at least for the rat side of the box, there are 2 weapon upgrades that I think can really, really help them because it gives them a little more range. That you might want to look for in this deck too, if you're deciding to take the Skaven out for a spin. So
nice. And then I think we qualified as a silver for the new player rating. So it's pretty straightforward, but it is mixed in what it wants you to do. You need to do some charging, some attacking, taking fighters out, but also being on feature tokens, delving tokens. So not nearly as straightforward as a pure strike, but the deck gives you the tools that you need to do the things that the deck wants you to do. Cool. So that's it for Pillage and Plunder. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk about the countdown to Cataclysm.
And we're back for the final countdown
to Cataclysm.
Oh, this countdown to Cataclysm. All right, great. So this is our mastery deck. Really cool mechanic. Excited to see this one come in the box. But it does have a plot card. So while using this rival deck, during the muster warband step of the setup, place a generic token on the first step on the countdown card included in this deck. This token is your Cataclysm Tracker. You can advance your Cataclysm Tracker 1 step the first time a friendly fighter is slain in each combat phase, and you can advance your Cataclysm Tracker 1 step after the last power step in each battle round for each feature token that has no enemy fighters. So, I mean, that could be 5 in one round.
Could be.
While your tracker is on the 1st to 5th step, your value is 1. 6 to 9, it's 2. 10 to 13, it's 3. And the final step is 4. So, and then the card is cool. It kind of has this like green glowing effect and, a fuse that it's the final countdown to something happening. But our first mastery deck has cool mechanics. And for the first objective that we're looking for in this deck, it's set explosives. Score this in an end phase if your warband holds 2 or more treasure tokens and holds all the treasure tokens in any territory. So we've talked about how to kind of set this up before. It is worth 2 glory. So getting it early, getting maybe one of your back objectives, and maybe delving some other things if you have a bunch of treasures in your territory, or holding 2 anywhere and delving the other ones to make sure that you hold them all in a territory, because that territory could be no one's territory in the center.
Neutral territory.
It's no one's territory.
It's neutral territory. Listen, you're going to struggle with neutral versus no one's. I'll struggle with objective versus treasure. It'll be great.
Hey, Jerod, what's the Gargant do?
So when he's uninspired, you get 1 glory for every
All right,
point of
knock it
damage
off.
that you do.
Knock it off. Knock it off.
I don't know why I remember this. So funny. All right, moving on.
Moving on.
Explosives.
Yep, set explosives to collateral damage.
So score this immediately after you advance your Cataclysm tracker 1 step as the result of a friendly fighter being slain. If you are the underdog, score this after you advance your Cataclysm tracker 1 step for any reason instead. So in the games that we played, this deck is kind of a slow burn deck anyway. Like it takes a minute to get the glory rolling. So you may be the underdog going into the end phase, which means that you could score this in the end phase when you advance, or in the last power step when you advance the tracker for unheld future tokens, gambits that advance the Cataclysm tracker, or you're playing Ticket's Tunnel Pack and you just decide to yeet the rat into enemy territory as your first activation. Oh no.
And
I lost no bounty, potentially damaged a person. I don't have any soft targets, and my Cataclysm encounter advanced 1.
Tick, tick, boom.
Oh no.
oh no. Kind of cool. But if you're playing with the Stormcast, you might not get it for a friendly fighter being slain. So
Probably not. No.
And then the last one is Shocking Assault. Score this immediately after your opponent's action step if your warband holds all the treasure tokens in no one's territory.
Neutral territory.
Tomato, tomato.
Tomato, tomato. Again, kind of set explosives and shocking assault all kind of in the same activation steps, setting that all up. And typically there will only be one objective in neutral territory. So pretty easy to get that.
Yeah. I like it.
Cool. So moving on to gambits and cycling through all these cards, I have growing concerns that I'm going to miss something. So
nice. So growing concerns, enemy fighters have -X move in the next action step where X is your Cataclysm value. So we've talked about the proliferance of plus move cards in this deck. So your opponent may have those cards in hand. Even subtracting 1 move could mess up their plans. Maybe they had planned on having, 1 more move than their fighter already had, and you just took that away. It could prevent them from getting onto an objective that they need to get on. But the idea being, the earlier you can mess up your opponent's plans, the more effective that's going to be for you in the future game.
Oh, I lost it again. But at the same time, late game, that could be -4.
It could be -4, right? And to a minimum of 1, according to the core rulebook.
It's still -4.
Cannot be reduced below 1. Yeah, right.
The next card we're looking for is Violent Blast. So pick a stagger hex, push each fighter within 1 hex of that stagger hex, 1 hex. Each fighter.
Yep, not friendly, not enemy. Could be both. Yep. Get them out of there.
Well, it doesn't even need to be out of there. It just says push them 1 hex.
You could push an enemy fighter into a stagger hex.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Or away, or whatever way you want to be. It could really be used to, push them into the stagger hex and push your fighter closer, and make a nice attack. Very, very cool card to set up some wombo combos. Speaking of which, we have the counter charge.
That's right, making its return. Play this immediately after a friendly fighter is picked to be the target of an attack. Pick another friendly fighter, push that fighter up to 3 hexes. That push must end adjacent to the attacker. The flavor text here is a little spicy.
Is it?
Sigmar's Bells Here they come once more. This is credited to Uric Velzane. Sigmar's Bells. Sigmar's what?
I mean, for whom the bell tolls? I don't know.
Exactly.
It's really cool.
So-
it sets up a flank at the very least.
Right.
Can set up attacks right afterwards.
Repositioning. Pull somebody out of enemy territory, get somebody into neutral territory. A 3-hex push is a pretty big deal. And as tight as the board is, we've talked about this, there's a good chance you're going to have somebody within 3 hexes.
Yeah, and the fact that a friendly fighter has already been picked as the target of the attack, you don't have to worry about this fighter
Becoming the target. That's right.
Cool. On to the upgrades. In one of my favorite pictures, it's the Bringer of Doom.
He is Tick is the Bringer of Doom. This has the surge ability Tick Tock. After this card is discarded during a combat phase, you can immediately advance your Cataclysm tracker 1 step. So this is going back to what we talked about earlier. You put this upgrade on the rat, you throw the rat in, you blow up the rat, hopefully do some damage. Don't lose any glory, or don't give your opponent any glory, and you get to advance your Cataclysm counter 1 step.
Or 2 if it's the first fighter that was taken.
That's true.
Bam, bam.
Wombity combity.
Wombity dombity. And the next one will be Burnt Out. And I mean, you guys sold me on this one. I'm not a huge fan, but it costs 1 glory to put it on, but it gives you an action. So you're spending an activation to take the Smolder action, pick a friendly fighter, give that fighter a stagger token, then draw 2 power cards. If you are the underdog, you draw 3 power cards instead. So I'm paying a glory, losing an action, but I get some cards.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, it's cool. Might not be my favorite.
So I mean, this deck, it works differently. It's a mastery deck, and I think you can see from some of the choices that we've already made that it's not a conventional playstyle. It's not conventionally go and take out your opponent. It's not conventionally be on feature tokens. You can read into the plot card. You want your opponent to not be on feature tokens. So like maybe you do want to hold them, but there are other gambits in there that could have value to you, or other upgrades that could have value to you, and getting them earlier is going to be better. And for this card specifically, if you're going to use this action, you're going to get more value from it if you use it multiple times. And the only way that you're going to be able to use it multiple times throughout a game is if you have it early.
Yeah, I mean, it gets more cards. I get it.
Yep. We may have to do like a rehash, in like 3 or 4 months and go through these decks again, but we'll see.
Yeah, but I think your point of being a mastery deck, like you want a lot of these cards to advance your counter, and then a lot of these cards get increasingly more value if that counter is high. So I understand why you want it early to turn through the deck to help you build that final countdown. Like the one where you get defense characteristic of your Cataclysm counter.
Yep.
Like, we want that stuff out. I get it. But the last upgrade that we're gonna take here in our top 3 is Desperate Rage, which is a weapon upgrade. It is range 1, 2 hammers for 3 damage. That's pretty potent. It does cost a glory, and immediately after this fighter has attacked with this weapon, inflict 1 damage on this fighter. So it does hit you, but 2 hammers for 3 damage is a pretty good attack.
Yeah. You may not be worried. You may not have anything to worry about if you just hit somebody for 3 damage.
I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
Especially if you just hit him with a trapped cash right before that.
or I'm putting it on an expendable rat.
Or you're putting it on an expendable rat.
I think what I like about going back to the previous cards you guys were just talking about, I think what this shows is that there's just still a lot of skill expression that you can do. Like, because that card, Jason wasn't originally sold on it. But I think that there's going to be a lot of cool ways that people can kind of fine tune their decks, especially with the new Nemesis stuff, to make use of that card and be like, oh, I didn't think about they used that card that way. So it's just cool design space that we get to see open up. So,
yeah, I agree. For boards, really, we don't really have a recommendation on boards for this deck. It very well may be warband dependent as we start to pair it with these two warbands. I know that I did play this with the rats, and mastery is that. So new player rating, Jerod, what would we give it?
Yeah, this is going to be a bronze on the new player. Like, it's clear that the deck wants you to get your countdown value, Cataclysm value high, but it is not straightforward in deciding which is the best way to make that happen. You saw the most success by having me not on feature tokens. And then, the turn where you blew the rat up.
Yes. Yeah, there's still some really cool cards in here. I think it'll be fun to build with, but definitely bronze. Like, start from the top and work your way down. Go strike, take and hold, then put that play style together with a flex, and then finish it with the mastery.
Yep.
So. With that's all 4 decks. I think the biggest takeaway for me and these 4 decks is it feels they're like 4 individual decks that give us really good building tools for the future. I agree. I think that these decks will stay around for quite some time, and what I mean by that is you will be coming back to these first 4 decks to really dive into Nemesis. And be building with them. I'm very excited. I think that there are a number of cards to select out of each one of these to really take your game to the next level. So I think it's right where we need to be for the first new set of this version 2.0. And with that, we will take a break and come back from the outro.
And we're back, and that will wrap up the 73rd episode of the Battle Mallet podcast. As always, we want to say thanks for taking the time to listen. We're creating this content for you, the listeners. So one thing that we can ask of you is that you make sure that you like the posts and subscribe to the podcast and whatever podcast channel of your choice is. It is the best way to get our content out to other people beyond word of mouth. We also want to say thank you to Games Workshop for sending us an advanced copy of Embergard for review. Highly appreciated, again, to have this opportunity to be able to create this content, to get it out on pre-order day for everybody in their mass consumption mode. I think that's it. So we are now Battle Mallet HQ on both X and Instagram, Battle Mallet Podcast on Facebook. Battle-mallet.com is our website. That should be all of the ways that you need to find us. We have a Discord.
Easier for you to say, isn't it?
It is. It really is. We have a Discord. You can find a link to our Discord server in the show notes. It is largely geared towards our little gaming community, but we do have broader conversations about Underworlds happening in that channel. I think that's it. So for the Battle Mallet podcast, I am a mastery deck.
I'm a strike deck.
Oh, and I'm flex, baby.
This is Jerod signing out.
I'm Jason Table New Murray. Get the hell out of here.
Peace.
Go Bills.
The Battle Mallet podcast is protected under the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find more information via links on podcast.battle-mallet.com. Music by Anno Domini Beats.
I'm trying to stay in my lane, okay? I'm trying to stay in my lane.
Well, I was all over Jason's lane.
Yeah, you are.